My children, sit down. Let me tell you a story. Not one from a faraway land or a distant time, but one that happened right here, under the same sky you walk beneath. My name is Lydia Cole. I'm 68 years old, and this is the story of how I disappeared while still living in the middle of the city. It was a Tuesday. I remember because Tuesday was always grocery day. The buses were late, the air smelled like exhaust and coffee, and the world moved fast. Too fast for old bones like mine. I lived on 11th Street, in an old apartment with cracked walls and a stubborn heater. I had lived there for almost 40 years. That apartment had seen everything. My laughter, my tears, my late night prayers whispered into the silence. Once upon a time, I had a family. A husband who swore he'd love me till the end of time, and his son named Caleb, my heartbeat in human form. But life, my children, has a strange way of testing the strongest promises. When my husband died 15 years ago, Caleb and I only had each other. We were so close that the neighbors used to joke. Where you see Lydia, you see her shadow Caleb. I worked as a cleaner in a law firm downtown. He went to college, the first in our family to ever do so. I used to scrub those office floors with pride, thinking, my boy is going to make it big one day. And he did. Or at least I thought he did. Caleb graduated, got a job in finance, started earning more in a month than I had ever made in a year. He moved into a glass walled apartment in Midtown. Everything about him started to change. His clothes, his friends, his voice, even the way he looked at me. Mom, you don't have to keep working, he said one evening, handing me an envelope. Inside was a check for $2,000. I can take care of you now. Just relax. Relax. Such an easy word when you've never had to count pennies. But something in his tone made my stomach twist. It wasn't pride, it was pity. And pity, my children, is the sharpest knife that cuts love in half. Months passed. I saw him less and less. Calls became text, texts became silence. I'd leave him little voice messages every Sunday. Hi, sweetheart. I made your favorites too. Maybe you could visit? Caleb, I miss you. Your old room is still the same. Son, are you okay? He'd reply once in a while with things like, been busy, mom. Next weekend, okay. Next weekend, never again. One day, out of nowhere, I got an invitation. A dinner at Caleb's new condo. Dress nice, the message said. I laughed out loud. Dress nice, as if I owned anything fancy anymore. So I took out my old blue dress, the one my husband used to say made my eyes look like the ocean. I polished my shoes, curled my hair, and took two buses and one train to get that glittering tower of glass and pride. When I arrived, Caleb greeted me with a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. Mom, you made it. His fiancée Sophie was there too, a woman with perfect hair and a golden smile. Dinner was beautiful. Candles, wine, laughter that didn't feel real. Halfway through dessert, Sophie said casually, So, Lydia, Killybull's telling me about your apartment. I nodded, sipping my tea. Yes, I've been in there since before he was born. She smiled sweetly. Too sweetly. That's wonderful, but it must be a lot for you to manage alone. I didn't understand at first. Then Caleb cleared his throat. Mom, we've been thinking maybe it's time for you to move somewhere easier. You know, a senior facility. They take care of you. I stared at him. The apartment is my home, I whispered. I raised you there. He sighed like I was a stubborn child. Mum, be reasonable. It's not safe. The neighborhood's getting rough. Besides, he hesitated. Besides, we could use the apartment. Sophie and I are thinking of expanding. Expanding. That word hit me like a slap. They weren't worried about me. They wanted my home. That night, I went back to 11th Street in silence. The train hummed beneath me like a tired lullaby. When I got home, I sat on my bed and stared at the peeling wallpaper. I could still hear Caleb's laugh as a child echoing in that same room. Now he wanted to take it away. I didn't cry that night. I just felt empty, like someone had quietly stolen the meaning out of my life. Weeks passed. Caleb stopped calling again. Bills piled up. I went back to cleaning offices part time just to keep the lights on. Sometimes, while wiping desks or polishing floors, I think about all the dreams I once had and how small they had become, like the flickering bulb in my hallway. But life wasn't done with me yet. No, my children, that city still had one last twist to give. It was a rainy Friday when I slipped on the wet floor of the office lobby. The pain shot through my hip like lightning. The next thing I knew, I was in a hospital bed. The doctor said I'd need a cane for a while. When I called Caleb, he answered on the third try. Mom, I'm in a meeting right now. Can we talk later? I fell, Caleb. I'm in the hospital. Abad. Oh, is someone video? No, baby, just me. He sighed. Okay, I'll send Sophie to check on you. Sophie came the next day, stayed for 15 minutes, and left a bouquet that wilted before I got home. Caleb never showed. That was the moment I realized I had spent my whole life loving people who only remembered me when they needed something. I was their memory of duty, not of love. I was the background music to their success, and I was done. When I got home from the hospital, I made a decision. For the first time in my life, I was going to think about me. I saw some more jewelry, paid off the last of my rent, and with what little I had, I did something no one expected. I turned my old apartment into a safe place for others like me. Every Thursday, I invited 3 women from the neighborhood, widows, single mothers, forgotten grandmothers, and we cooked together, laughed together, shared stories that no one else wanted to hear. We called ourselves the Voices of 11th Street. And little by little, that empty apartment filled again. Not with money or luxury, but with warmth and love, and the kind of love that doesn't ask for anything back. 2 months later, Caleb came talking. He looked exhausted. Mom, we need to talk. I heard you've been renting the apartment. I smiled softly. No, son. I've been living in it. He stared at me confused. But you can't afford that, can you? Oh, Caleb, I said quietly. You'd be surprised what a woman can afford when she stops giving everything away. That day, for the first time, I saw something break in his proud face. Maybe guilt, maybe shame, maybe the faint echo of the boy who once hugged me after school. I didn't ask him to stay. I didn't ask for an apology. I had already forgiven him, not for him, but for my own peace. Because forgiveness, my children, isn't about forgetting what they did. It's about remembering who you are. Now,
I wake up each morning, open my window, and watch the sun rise over the same old street that once made me cry. Except now, I smile because I know the truth. You don't need the world's love to be whole. You only need your own voice and the courage to let it echo. If this story touched your heart, if you've ever felt unseen, unheard, or forgotten, then stay with us. Here, where stories like these find a home. Here, at Echoes of the Voiceless.